This is Chapter 10, Lesson 2, and we are working just with tenths today. So we have example 1, Lorena and Rebecca went to 10. 3 of the lessons were outside of the barn. What decimal represents the part of the horseback riding lessons that were spent outside? There were 10 horseback riding lessons, so they've got as in here. 3 out of 10 equal parts means 3 tenths. So we've got 3 full bars. 3 tenths of the model is shaded. Now we're going to write 3 tenths in the place value chart. So it's just like if we were to have 1, 2, 3 dimes and no pennies, we would write 3 tenths. And we would not need to write anything in the hundredths place. So it would look like that, which would be what? So 3 tenths of the horseback were outside. Another strategy, if you prefer it, is to write a number line, and I would write 0 ones and 1 1, and then the fraction that we're looking at. And since we're doing tenths in this lesson, you should be fine to just write 1 tenth, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths, 5, 6 tenths, 7 tenths, 8 tenths, 9 tenths, and 10 tenths would be 1 whole. So that's the right, if you prefer, rather than using the place value. A campground has 10 campsites. 8 of the campsites have campers. The rest are empty. What part of the campground is empty? So if we started and worked our way backwards, we would go back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 campsites were full. That leaves 2 campsites empty. So if 8 out of 10 campsites have campers, then 2 out of 10 campsites do not have campers. So 2 tenths of the campground is empty. Use words to describe 0.7. 7 is in the tenths place, so 0.7 is 7 tenths. 7 tenths means 7 out of 10 equal parts. 0.7 can be described as 7 out of 10. But if you were to write 7 tenths, that would be perfectly acceptable as well. Okay, now we're on the practice, so these are ones that you should try and then continue watching the video to see if you're doing fine or if you need to watch more to get some more help. So we're going to shade the model and then write the decimal underneath. Okay, so I'm going to shade here 4 out of 10. So I'm going to try and keep my pen 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 10. And if I were to write that, I know I need 4. The question is, what do I need before it? Since it's not in the hundreds place value, it's not going to need a 0 for the tenths place, but it is going to need 0 for the ones place. So 0.4 would be the way that would be written. Now if I'm doing 8 tenths, I'm going to do the same thing, except for instead of only shading in 4, I'm going to shade in. Okay, so meantime I found the coolest thing ever. I found a better way to write these. So I shaded in 8 tenths, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I found a way to make a text box. I'm so excited. So if I were to write 8 tenths, 0 ones, and 8 tenths. That's how that would be written. Yay for easy! Okay, so now we're on the independent practice. And again, if you can pause the video and do this on your own, please do. I am meanwhile going to have some fun with the new toys I found. Okay, so we're going to shade the model and write the decimal. If we're shading 1 out of 10, I'm going to shade 1. Look how easy that is. And if I want to write the decimal, I'm going to write 0 ones and 1 tenth. And that's how it's written. Yay! 5 out of 10. I'm going to shade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And in order to write that, I will write 0 ones and 5 tenths. 5 tenths. To shade 2 tenths, I'm going to shade 1, 2, and I would write that 0 ones, 0, 2 tenths. 7 tenths would be written. Hopefully you're pausing the video and able to solve these on your own now that you're noticing a pattern. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tenths. 7 tenths. Write each of the following as a decimal, then graph each point on the same number line. Fun. So down here I can see a number line. And in order to write it, I'm going to need my text box. 6 out of 10 would be written just like that, 6 tenths. And it would be written 9 tenths. And in order to graph it on my number line, it doesn't give me a number line, so I have to write one. So I'm going to draw my line. And then I'm going to change this and see if I can make little dots on it to make my place values. So I'll go 1, no, 1, 2, 3, 4, these are really big, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then just in order to graph these, I might change my color again. You can do this with pencil and just drawing different. So I need to graph 6. So what? Let's say 0 is over here. Let's make another one for 0. Let me do that. Okay, so I made a 0. So now I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this would be 6 tenths. And then if I wanted to graph, well, let's make a bigger dot than that. Here's would be my 9 out of 10, 6, 7, 8, 9. And there would be my 9 tenths. That's how they would both look graphed on the same number line. Okay, so I got the feeling that it might be more helpful for me to have a whiteboard with a grid pattern on it. So I just printed out, I just went into Word and made a table that's 10 by 10. So now I've got 100 grid. If you don't have that, you can always take a grid paper and box out a section that is 10 squares and make that your hundredths chart, and then you can do the problems. And this way you can just slip it in a page protector if you want, or do this problem separately on your grid. Okay, so Cody wanted to play fetch with his dog. His dog had 10 chew toys, so that would be the 10 rows. Cody took 6 toys outside for his dog. Write a decimal to show what part of the deal inside. Okay, so I'm going to show the 6 toys that he took outside to play with his dog. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are what he took outside. So what is still inside would be written over here. So we're going to, in this case, we're going to count the number of rows that are not shaded to see what he's left inside. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 rows there that are not shaded. So if I were going to write this sentence, I'm talking about Cody. And what did he do? He left 4 out of 10, or 4/10 toys inside. It's not asking for a fraction, it's asking for the decimal. I just wanted to show you because we've been working on fractions before. So 4/10 can be written both ways, but since we're doing the decimal chapter, this is the way to model it for this problem. Okay? Emilio had a math quiz today. He answered 9 of the 10 questions correctly. Write a decimal to show what part of the quiz Emilio answered correctly. Okay, so he answered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of the questions correctly. So I'm going out to my tenths place. I don't need my hundredths place because I didn't draw any dots or any squares. I only drew rows. So I shaded 9 rows. So that's how that would be written. Now in order to make my complete sentence answer, Emilio answered decimal version, not the fraction version, of the quiz correctly. And that's how that would be written for number 14. Okay. Jasmine had, now we're looking at pennies. She had 10 pennies in her pocket. Some fell through a hole in her pocket. Below are the pennies she still has in her pocket. Write a decimal to show what part of the pennies she lost. Normally I would tell you the pennies are all the way out in the hundreds place, so you'd be looking at tenths, hundredths, and she would have 3. But since she only started with 10, we're looking at 10. So I wish they had used dimes instead, but let's work with what we've got. 10 pennies in her pocket. Some fell through a hole. She has 3 of the 10 left, which would be written not as 300ths. This is not. It would be written 3/10. Because she only started with 10, she did not start with a full dollar. That's a very tricky problem. I don't like it, but that is the correct answer on that one. And I would write it, Jasmine has, how much she lost. That's how much she has. So she has lost 7/10 of her pennies. Good thing I noticed that. 3/10 is what she has. 10/10 minus 3/10 is 7/10. That's where I got that. Okay, write a decimal whose value is greater than 5/10. So there's a lot of possibilities here. Since we're only talking about tenths, you don't need to do any little squares, but we do need more than that many. You could have this many, which would be written, you could have this many, which would be written, you could have this many, which would be written, you could have this many, which would be written, or you could have the whole thing, which would be written that way. Any one of those answers would be fine. And if you want to get fancy, you may do that too. Okay, how can I use decimal grids to model tenths. So here I'm going to need to write a sentence. How can I use decimal grids to model tenths? I can draw a grid with 10 rows. Each row is equal to 1/10 or 1. And hopefully you worked some of this on your own, but that's the complete lesson. If you have more time in your 20 minutes, then I'd encourage you to do the homework and check your work there. And then I'm going to post the video with the answers for Chapter 10 before you take the Chapter 10 test.